with us. So we definitely encourage you to join us there. Additionally, one second. Additionally, in Meetup, not only are we posting the new events, but we are also encouraging you to have conversation inside of there. Questions come through there fairly frequently, so feel free to engage in the community from there. And then finally, our YouTube channel. We do try to record all of our meetings. So if you can't make a meeting, we do try to record it and put it in our YouTube channel. We've been doing this now for a couple of years. We're learning a lot about YouTube and the way that we can interact with our audience, but we are on YouTube. So for those of you that are joining with us live, I'm going to put that in the chat window. And if you are watching the recording, you probably have already found us on YouTube. But we do post the link in our Meetup site as well over to the YouTube channel. And hey, we're at the point now where we can actually get a custom URL. I need to go ahead and do that. That's that will be done very, very soon. So I'm going to get a custom URL for that. But join us on YouTube. Great way to engage. Speaking of YouTube and previous videos, Will is going to be our speaker today, Will Cooper. He's coming to us from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Will has actually spoke with us previously. We've got a couple of recordings on here. He's got one from around a year ago where building awesome dashboards with list and column formatting. So I'm pretty sure he's going to reference that a little bit in today's talk, but that's a previous video that you can go back and you can check out. That's on the YouTube channel. That one's about an hour and 40 minutes out there. So definitely go and check out that video from previous appearance meeting that we had previously. But today we are here to talk about some things that are new when it comes to SharePoint and Microsoft List and column formatting. Will's done some really cool work that we thought that the community would benefit from when it comes to working with customizing your list and columns in your SharePoint and Microsoft world. I just want to baseline on a couple of things that I think that are pretty important before I turn things over to Will and really get things going. Just make sure that you know that Microsoft List or SharePoint List, SharePoint List or Microsoft List. Microsoft just promoted the list component to kind of its own like first-class citizen, its own application. You can access Microsoft List from Office Home. So like right away from like your Office homepage, you're going to be able to access List pretty much right from there. How you create a list matters, though. There's essentially two different kinds of lists. There are private lists now. That's a list for you. And then there are shared lists. And those lists usually live inside of Microsoft Teams or inside of SharePoint sites. So there's really two different ways to do it when you work with Microsoft List. But at its core, it's a list. It's a SharePoint list. Just it may exist in a SharePoint site or it might exist inside of your OneDrive. And there's some really cool things that you can do with these lists. They're super mobile friendly. They work inside of Microsoft Teams. They work inside of your web browser. There's even a progressive web app where you can use Microsoft List offline. You can use it on your desktop, and it does have synchronization options built into it. So you can have a list with 100,000 items in it and access that offline and local, and then have it sync back to the cloud later on whenever you connect in. So there's a lot of power there. And it does work, some of that synchronization through the OneDrive for Business sync client, which is super helpful. But lists are a big part of what we do for things like tracking project deliverables, tracking issues, risk. It's huge in project management. I use lists a ton in training. It helps me to keep track of upcoming events, webinars, virtual trainings, semi-live trainings that we might be delivering. As far as training goes, it also helps with things like registration and attendance for those events. In fact, the new Microsoft Teams webinar feature takes advantage of Microsoft List for a lot of that. So when the registration numbers that you download, those are in a Microsoft List connected to the organizer's OneDrive account. So working with this for things like training is super helpful. Scheduling, content management. There's even a couple of calendar-based views that you can work with associated with the list, which are super, super helpful. So there's a lot of power that goes into it. And as we've discovered in previous uh, user group meetings, you can do some really cool customization now. And some of this customization is out of the box. Some of this customization involves our friend JSON. But here today, and this is where I'm going to turn it over to our speaker, Will Cooper, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the customization options, some of the things that are available, but also Will's going to show you some things that can make this a lot simpler and a lot more approachable for our end users, as well as for some of our developers out there. So with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn things over and introduce our speaker, Will Cooper. Hey, Will.
Hey, thanks for the great intro. I appreciate that. I've got my screen shared out. Andy, you really did a good job to explain some background on lists, where they're going, especially the fact that Microsoft, like you say, has kind of promoted List to its own category unto itself and not just a component of SharePoint. As Andy had mentioned, this is something I've spoken on in the past. This is something I really care a lot about, and I spent a lot of time in this particular area. So I'm going to show you some things that I think you'll find interesting. Everything about this is visual, and I really enjoy visualization of data and that type of thing. So we'll go ahead and jump in. So the topic of my presentation is column and view formatting made easy in SharePoint. Jump to my next slide. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm a solutions developer, particularly in SharePoint. That's my specialty, but I do development all around the Microsoft 365 platform. Additional to that, I have a YouTube channel called SharePoint Smart. You can search for that. I do educational, informational videos on SharePoint and the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, usually every couple of weeks. And then the other big thing that I'm spending my time on is SharePoint dashboards. This is a platform that's really the focus of the topic today. So you're going to find out all about SharePoint dashboards. This tool set, really my goal is to make it simple and fun to use, and also continuous improvement. The tool itself, it's built around easy configuration and writing no code. So you don't have to do anything in the horrible JSON that Andy referenced. And all of this can be done and worked with inside of your SharePoint user interface. So that's a little bit of background. About me personally, as I mentioned, I'm very focused on SharePoint, have been for several years. I'm originally from Iowa and moved down to North Carolina and went to school. And so that's where I am now, just north of you guys. Some of my hobbies, I like classic video games, like the old arcade games. So there you see Donkey Kong. And I like to do a lot of running. So those are some of my hobbies. There's a shot of my kids with me lurking behind them. All right, so SharePoint dashboards. This is 100% compatible with SharePoint Online and Microsoft List. So all the things you'll see me doing today works in there. Primarily in terms of the Microsoft API and how this works, it's pretty much targeted at SharePoint Online. Some of the templates that I'm showing can be used for on-premise SharePoint, but there's 100% compatibility if you're using SharePoint in the cloud. All right, so this is the all too familiar and very boring SharePoint list view. Gray on white. We've seen, all of us, 1,000 screens like this, probably 100,000, and it's boring and it makes you want to take a nap. This is an example of a formatted list view. Of course, that's completely different than the preceding screen. And this is that information formatted into a visual display that organizes and color codes does things like format an image, provide a button, things like that. So of course, this is a lot more visually appealing. In general terms, I'll provide this information after the presentation, but these are some links to some of the Microsoft references and other sites related to view and column formatting. So there's some Microsoft pages that give comprehensive information. There is a community on GitHub where they have templates that's really geared towards developers. That's really how I've learned most of the things that I know how to do with the formatting. And then we've got fabric icons. There's a reference for that, and then a link to my site, which we're getting ready to jump to in just a second. All these templates are constructed using JSON formatting, JavaScript object notation. What is that? It's this. Pretty horrible to look at, right? It's basically a big set of nested curly braces and cryptic syntax. And all of this comprises instructions that are compiled and tell the SharePoint platform, or whichever part of Microsoft 365 you're in, how to spit out HTML and styling onto the page. And then the browser interprets that, and then you see the cool visual stuff. So this is what's in the background, and really, whether you're a developer or not, it's not very pleasant working inside of this. How do you get good at working with that? Basically, it takes a lot of practice. And then basically, once you've worked with that for a while in the API, you can, begin to get more proficient. Really, for 99.99% of people, it's a wall. It's not really something that you overcome, or it's just not practical to work with that. And so that's kind of a problem, because the capabilities that this provide are great, and there's a lot of opportunities, but it's just not a reasonable expectation for normal people to work with that, to manipulate those to get what they want. So therein lies the challenge. How do you get these awesome, cool-looking views with no code? And that is the premise of the platform which I put together, which is called SharePoint Dashboards. All right, so let me jump out of my PowerPoint deck. This is my website, easy to find, SharePointDashboards.com. When you arrive at the homepage, you'll see a slideshow, and you can view that for a while and see various examples of different things you can build inside of SharePoint. And then when you're ready, you can just click on the big green button, and that takes you to probably the most useful page in the site, which is the gallery. And the gallery shows you a visual preview of all the different templates that are available in there. As of right now, there's a total of 62 templates, and they provide all kinds of different functionalities and purposes. And you can click on these tiles to just jump to what you want to go to. So there are free templates, and there's professional templates, the pro templates. As you probably already have guessed, you can get in here and try the free stuff, and there's a subscription that you can do if you want to have full access to all the templates. Obviously, I didn't want to come here today just to give you guys a big sales pitch. I do believe there's a lot of value if you just use these free templates, and that's whether you intend to subscribe for the other features or just use the free one. There's a lot of value in that. So what you want to do, first of all, is come in here and start working with those free ones. They're easy to identify. They're just the ones with the little green pill next to them. And that's how you can begin and start to get familiar with using this tool. And so what we're going to do is walk through examples. And what's going on here is this tool writes the code for you. So you see this code down here, but you will never at any time ever have to modify or update any of that at all. This tool creates that, and you just copy and paste that into SharePoint. All right, so when you arrive at each template page, it's going to look like what you're looking at. There's different sections. You're going to see a preview movie that shows the top. You can click Stop Preview, and then it'll give you a real-time preview of what that's going to look like. Okay, so this is probably the most common one I use. Is just putting an edit button next to a record in a SharePoint list. So first thing you can do is you can look at some suggestions on themes. That's just pre-configured settings. And this preview shows you exactly how it's going to turn out in SharePoint. So I don't have to guess about it. Basically, I can do all my configuration and get this however I want. And then I'll just give it a different background color just for the heck of it. There, it's blue, and we'll make it a little bigger. Once I have that how I want, I just hit the copy button, and then I'm going to pop over to SharePoint. And I'm going to go to my little sandbox site here in SharePoint. I'm going to show you how this works. So there's two types of formatting. There's column formatting and there's view formatting. It's very easy to get to. You just go to the column header, go to column settings, and click on Format this column. And then inside of there, you got this code. So what it's doing is just taking you from, whatever's in there. Whether it's nothing, you just paste it in and it makes that appear. There's the edit button I just configured, and then I can hover over that, and obviously this one has a very simple purpose. It just opens the edit form for me. And that's really all there is to it. I don't have to manipulate the code. It's just a simple copy paste. And that's really, that's all that I need to do. Okay, so we'll just go on to the next template. So that's the edit one. Really simple, really easy. One of the free ones. You can use it anytime you want. All right, so let's do till do. That's a concept we're all familiar with. We all have deadlines, and we have to keep track of that. So that's a date template. So it's the date till do KPI. So now I'm going in there. Now, in all cases, what you're going to see is a blue box in the lower left. It gives you some notes and description of what's expected for that particular one. So this one tells you that it's looking for a calculated field, just pointing to a date, and it explains what it is. So this shows the difference between current date and the reference date, gives you number of days between, and then, it highlights according to that. Okay. So I can browse through here. Again, the first thing I'm going to do is check the themes. These are examples, but obviously, I can set this however I want. Maybe I want the current day background color to really stand out, make that orange for whatever reason. And I can make it whatever font size I want, all that kind of thing. Again, I don't ever have to do anything to the code at all. I just hit the copy button, and I'm going to go over to my example for that. And there's my till do. Well, let me just show you what it is. All it is just pointing to the due date column. So it looks like that. And then I'm just pasting over from the other side, and it just appears for me. Just to illustrate, let me make one today. That one, January 20th. And exit. Okay, so there's the orange. Okay, so these are really simple, easy to use templates. This is what you want to get started with. It'll give you a little bit of momentum, so you're not kind of overwhelmed when you first get into the site in terms of understanding what these templates do, how they're used. That's kind of good starting point for you. All right, so that's the date template. Document thumbnail. That's a useful one. We can go to that next. Where are you, document thumbnail? Okay, there it is. Okay, these first three I've showed you, obviously they're free. You guys can just go to this anytime you want after the presentation. It's always going to be available to you. It's just that simple. All right, so again, I just click Stop Preview. I can control the slider to control how big I want that to be. Maybe I want really big thumbnails for some reason. And then I just copy that. And it is good to have a sandbox site. I use that all the time. So maybe you want to do a little bit of practice work just to see how these work before you actually use it, in a live list that's used by a lot of people. All right, so there's the thumbnail column. And I just do format this column. It's going to look bigger because I just chose for a bigger one for that. And then sometimes you may want to adjust the width. So it's showing a preview of that. If I click on the preview, it'll actually take me into the document, just like that. So just kind of adding some visual indicators inside of SharePoint. All right, so that's the third one. All right, now let's go to a view template. That's a different kind of a concept. So as I mentioned, there's column formatting and view formatting. So if I come down here, I'll get to the view templates, and what we want is alternating rows. Okay, so that's right here. Get another really simple concept. It's just a different way to make your SharePoint list look. So I can come through here, and maybe I want to just do light green, light blue. I could copy that. We go to my view formatting, alternating shaded rows. Just one I had yesterday. And in this case, I go to the view selector in the upper right. And instead of formatting column, I'm now formatting the view. So it's going to apply to the whole view. And the view formatting does supersede the column formatting. Okay, so this looks just like what I saw in my preview. All right, so those are some of the free templates. There are 16, but obviously there's quite a lot more to this. There's a lot of indicators and things like that. In fact, I would tend to think probably the most important part of the other templates are charting. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate next. Some of you guys may use Power BI, and probably you would agree there's some problems with Power BI. One is for many organizations, it's prohibitively expensive. It's a major investment of money because not only do you need to pay for licenses for the people who are developing your reports and charts, you also have to pay for people who are just viewing those. Another barrier when it comes to Power BI is that it's very developer oriented. There's a relatively steep learning curve. There's a lot to do with it. It's pretty deep and broad platform. Obviously, there's a lot of things you could do to it, but it doesn't necessarily match up with the needs of a business that, say, just wants to do some basic charts. They want to do something quickly and simply, and that's really all they need. What we're going to do is start out with the columns chart. Okay, so it'll give you a little message. One thing that's kind of cool, you can check out any of these if you're maybe looking at this and thinking, I might be interested in a subscription, but I'm really not sure. I don't know what it does. I really need to see what it does first. You can come in here and adjust all these settings and see exactly how it's going to work. Now, unlike those templates that I was just in, this one obviously has a lot of settings to it, which might be a little bit overwhelming at first. But as you start to work with it, you'll realize that it's pretty straightforward. And really, it's just something you can play with, and it's pretty easy to understand the more you work with it. So I can come down through these drop downs. I'll just give some examples of different things I can adjust. Okay, so I want a prefix, since let's say this is a sales tracking thing I'm doing. Maybe I don't like that background gradient. It's a little boring to look at. I can pick another gradient there. I've got a little bit different background, if you can see that. I may want to just make little tweaks here and there. That's really what it's about. But the key thing is I'm not having to do any of those things in code. Maybe I want my font color to be dark blue. Okay, so I'm just kind of setting up a theme, if you will. And maybe I'm going to do something different with the bars. You can even do gradients inside the bars, which is kind of cool. Do something crazy. Okay, lavender to purple. Okay, I never claim to be good at choosing colors. So for any of you guys laughing or holding your hands over your monitor right now, I do apologize. Okay, and then you can make just subtle adjustments to that. Maybe I have a very particular thing I want to do. Like I want to make the border on the bars a little bit darker, or I want those bars to be a little bit narrower in their columns. I can make all those little fine-tuning adjustments. It's just simple concepts. I don't have to guess at it because what you see is what you get. And then I can do things like toggle on the values in the bar, and I can adjust the minimum max. You know, maybe I need this to get a little bigger for me. I'm changing the scale. All right, so now I'm going up to $3,000. I want to show the values. Maybe I like those to be rounded. Okay, now we got rounded bars. So there's all kinds of little fine tuning and tweaks and adjustments I can do to get this pretty and look just the way I want. Okay, I just made it wider. Okay, so I can do all of those things. And then I need to switch over because I'm in this preview mode. All right, so there's all this gobbledygook in this window down here, and I don't ever have to worry about that because all I ever do is hit the copy button. I'm going to paste it in. All right, so this is one of my charting ones. So I'm going to go to columns, one row. There's one I want. Now, there's different kinds of charts. There's some that work from multiple rows of data, and there's some that work from individual rows. I'll explain how that works. So first of all, let's do this. Let's get rid of the formatting. Let's see what the data looks like I'm working with. Pretty simple to understand. I've got a row, I have 2018 sales, and then I have columns that are defined for the months of the year, January, February, March, April. With these single row charts, it's going to render a chart for each row. Okay, I'm going to show you a different kind of chart in a second, which actually uses multiple rows for one chart. Okay, so I just pasted that in, and it looks just like my preview window over here. Okay, and then I can even fine tune that. Maybe I got it over into SharePoint. I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot something. I want to make an adjustment. I really want the title to be a little bit bigger, and I forgot to put the money in there. I really want to see that. And you know what? I'd really just like it to be taller too. So I'm able to make those changes really quickly. I can see the preview, and literally I just select it all and paste again. So those fine-tuning adjustments, I'm able to do it in just a few clicks. Probably not the kind of experience that you're going to have if you're working on charts in Power BI. So kind of fast, quick, I can see exactly what's going on while I'm doing it. So that's view formatting. And as you can tell, I've got a chart for each row of data. Let's look at a pie chart because we might as well cover some of the more common kinds of charts. I'm going to go back to my gallery. There's lots of templates, so that's why I have this gallery, because otherwise it's kind of hard to keep track of what's available and that type of thing. There's a pie that's for a column, but what I'm going to go, those are under a section called progress indicators. And then what I want is actually for the view. There's the donut, there's the pie chart. All right, so then I've got some different themes. All right, and it tells you at the bottom the names of the SharePoint fields. So you do need to feed that in because obviously it's going to map the data. So in this case, I still have months of the year. I've already got my list set up for that. But it shows me I can control where I want that legend to show up. Maybe I want it on the bottom. There, it's on the bottom. All right, I want it to be a little bigger. Let's make it a little wider, a little taller. All right, so now I got my big pie chart with the gradient going on, and you don't have to get it perfect the first time, right? You're doing it in steps, baby steps, incrementally. So I'm going to go to my view for pie charts. Okay, same as before, just to demonstrate, I'll remove the formatting. And you can see how simple this is. I just have a single row of data, and you have the information in there for, this is like a status summary. Now in this case, I need to update my field names, otherwise this is going to work. Okay, so let me do that. All right, so what do we got? Reported, in progress, on hold. And in progress. Notice my preview is changing at the top because it wants to show me exactly what I'm working with. Complete, canceled. It's confused because I said, oh, you're doing 12 fields. No, I'm not. In this case, I'm doing 5. Notice my preview just changed. Notice my key changed at the bottom too. It's all corresponding to what I put in there. So you do need to describe what it is you're doing. And then I can just paste in here. There we go. Okay, so I don't have any in progress, so it's kind of barking at me. I'd gotta fix that one. Okay, so that's a pie chart. All right, now we'll go to a different kind of a chart, Gantt chart. Okay, so I'm sure all you guys work with dates a lot, right? That's a view that kind of show you the start and ends of projects, that type of thing. So we'll go down to that charting section. So I just look for the charting templates and just look for the one that says Gantt chart on it. All right, there it is. Okay, so this movie that you see when you first call up the page is just to help you understand what is it I'm doing here. So it shows you what the data looks like before the formatting and after the formatting. All right, so I stopped the preview, and maybe I want to see curved bars too. Okay, so I need to give it a time frame. In this case, I'm doing one from beginning of last year to the end of this year. And then, like I say, I can fine tune, if I want the bars to be a little bigger, that kind of thing. I can make all those subtle adjustments. Copy that. Then I just go to my view. Here's my Gantt chart. Again, this is view formatting. All these charting ones are. So this is what the data looks like beforehand, right? I have the name of a project, a start date, and an end date. So I have multiple rows for this type of chart. Let's paste that in. There it is. It's a visualization of those projects to help me compare when they started and ended. And again, I look at this, I'm like, oh, that's too skinny. I don't like that. Oh no, I have to adjust it. How hard is it to adjust? Not hard at all. I just come over here and say, let's try a really wide one. Let's try 1400. The preview changes immediately. Paste it in. Save. And notice the scale obviously is going to adjust too. So everything got wider, and that might be more like what you want. Let's look at the line chart next, because that's probably about the most common kind of chart that people do. All right, there's our line chart. Switch this over, go to our view. All right, there's the line chart. Okay, it's going to render a chart per single line of data. So it's using the same kind of data that we were doing for the bar chart. And really, again, the thing I want to emphasize to you is how you can make all these little subtle changes. You have a lot of control in terms of what you're doing here. So I can fine tune that scale, so it can be bigger if I need to. Notice they're curved. You might find that interesting. Instead of having those jagged edges, you can do curves. If you don't want that, you can turn it off. Turn the line curve down to that. You can make it really curvy. That's not the way I would typically like to do it, but all kinds of little subtle curves. Point radius, this is basically how big those points are. If you want to make those data points stand out more in the chart, you can do that. You can even change the shape of those little points if you want to do something a little more funky. Now I got little stars in there. And then just like the other one, I can change the background gradient if I wanted to do that. Once I get that how I want, I just come over here, format current view. Now, if you see this window, there is a configurator tool that Microsoft provides. In this case, you're not using that. You're using your own. You just click on Advanced, and that gets you to the window where you can paste it in. Oh, I need to change my scale because my data is big. So let's make it bigger. 120,000. There we go. So you can see it's pretty painless experience. All right. Let's kind of review some other options that are there. I've spent a pretty good chunk of time talking about charting, but that's an important part of the tool, but there's quite a lot of other things you can do. But a lot of the free ones, almost all the button ones, any kind of buttons you want to do, edit, view, delete records, send an email, hyperlink to open a file, video preview. Those are all accessible. You can have a button to kick off a flow if you want to. For all of these, you can use whatever icon you want. I mentioned that you can go to the fabric icons. There's about 50 gazillion different fabric icons you can choose from. Some of you like more options. You probably love this page. Other people say, oh my God, that's overwhelming. I don't really need all of that. I did provide some suggestions. So always look at the notes in the blue box, and you can work from that. But this one, basically you just provide the flow ID, and when you click on that, it's going to kick off a flow for you. So you can put a little button right in the list record for that. Indicators are really a big deal. You basically see a ton of that. People get really excited for indicators, and we've got lots of options for that. Lots of cool variety that helps stand out, show progress on this. Okay, so here's one where you have a pie chart, but not only is it a pie chart, it's a pie chart that changes according to how full you are. So you can have kind of the cold to hot kind of concept going on if you want to do that. And again, you can pick whatever colors you want, so you can get really advanced. I can change any color to that I want to change. Okay, so you really have like that granular level of control if you want it. You can get just as detailed as you want. So that's a column template. You can also have inline editing. That's a toggle option. If you click on the inline edit, it will let you do that. And let me go to some of the other indicators. Here's one that's kind of cool. It's actually drawn with SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. And you can actually have, it's kind of like a speedometer on your car, right? You've got a little meter, and you've got the, the pointer kind of moving left to right. So that's kind of a cool concept. You can make those 5 colors be whatever you like. So obviously that's going to be really eye-catching and stand out to your users. If you want kind of a bigger radial gauge, you can do something like this. Basically, same kind of thing. I can make the colors change according to how full that is. This one doesn't have the curves on it. It's got kind of like sharper edges, if you will. But all of these themes that you have, they change according to however you configure these options down here. If you don't want those colors to change according to how full it is, then you can just set the low, mid, and high to the same value. So you've got a lot of options there. Okay, progress bars. That's always a big one, of course. So this is one where you can have a progress bar with like a gradient image background in there if you want to do something like that. Just kind of provide some more visual appeal rather than say, just kind of the plain vanilla ones. So, obviously this one doesn't look right now because I need to change the colors. Okay, now it stands out. Maybe the writing is a little small. I want to make it bigger. So what I hope you're noticing is that I have a very granular, finite degree of control in terms of how this looks. Usually that would mean complexity, right? It's too complicated, it's hard to deal with, and that's really not the case. Hopefully you can tell I'm just making quick mouse clicks, and every single time that I make a change, the preview is immediately and instantaneously showing me exactly what it's going to look like. So I don't really have to worry about making mistakes or that type of thing. I can just fiddle around with these settings. You can even do something cool like this. I'll show you. If I click on that bar, I can use the up or down arrows on my keyboard to fine tune it. So that's kind of fun. Like that. So you just have a really good level of control. That means for those of you guys who are really visually oriented and you have more knowledge than I do, and you have a very precise vision in terms of how you want things to look, or you have picky users, this really gives you the ability to please them and give them just exactly whatever it is that they want. You can see there's a shadow behind the bar. You can have that for kind of a 3D effect, if you like that kind of thing. All right. Let me go back to SharePoint for a second. I want to show a concept to you real quick. It's kind of a new feature that was just recently released. You have the ability to change values. I'm sure a lot of you use the edit grid view, right? I just click in here and start editing. You can now, through the column formatting, set up columns to be able to change right when I click into it, or based on the click. So here's the checkbox column, which we've all seen, but of course, they really haven't been dynamic at all to this point. You can set up a checkbox column to show whatever colors and icons you want, and you can actually have it change. So this kind of blew my mind, because normally if I click on these things, it's not going to do anything, right? But now I've changed that functionality. Maybe I don't want somebody to have to go into the stupid edit form to just check a box, right? That's not a very user-friendly experience. I just need to be able to check them off really fast. I don't want extra steps. If I click on that, that's actually updating the record. I didn't have to go to grid edit view. I didn't have to open the form. I just clicked on it and it changed. And I've that visual indicator when I'm hovering over that helps the user know, oh, there's something going on here. I can click on that. I've got the little hand. I've got the little pointer. I must be able to do something there. So that's super handy. You can set up other kind of columns that way too. This is an inline edit column, so it's acting like a grid edit column, even though I'm not actually in grid edit view. So I think that's pretty awesome. So basically, just to kind of take a step back real quick, just to explain this platform, what it does, next steps, that type of thing. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything at all. You can just go to SharePointDashboards.com and you just click on the Getting Started button and you can drop in. And as I mentioned, there are 16 templates that are free. They're handy. That'll help you do really cool stuff right away. It'll help you learn how to use the tool very quickly. So I recommend that you just start with that, investigate, get yourself comfortable, and you can just make that a part of what you do in your list views. So that's going to be super valuable and handy to you. If you get further into it and you start to feel like, you can see the benefit of taking advantage of some of these other things, that's pretty straightforward. Just to give you some information, if you do decide to do the upgrade, you only need one license per person who's actually creating the templates. So for many of you, that may only mean you, which means you only need one license. So unlike Power BI, where you've got to get a whole bunch of licenses and it can mount up and be a huge cost, it just costs about $350 for the annual subscription for that, for one license. And then if you go for more than one license, then obviously it scales down and you have discounts for that. So that's the only thing that's required. That does let you get email support, and then you got to log in. You can update the whole thing. So with that, if I can, I'd like to just open up to questions. I do want to make sure that I absolutely can and will answer any questions that you have related to column or view formatting. So it obviously doesn't have to be specific just to the SharePoint dashboards tool. I'd be very happy to speak on any topic related to the formatting in terms of how it works, what you can do, compatibility, and so on. So go ahead.
put a couple of questions in the chat window as you were going through it, Will. So I'll kick things off with some of the Q&A. But if other people have questions, feel free to post it in the chat window, raise your hand, and we'll kind of go from there. One thing I wanted to ask about was when you were referencing the SharePoint fields, you were in your dashboard creator and you were referencing SharePoint fields. Is that case sensitive? Is it looking for the display name of the SharePoint field? Is it referencing like the internal column name? Are there any limitations around that?
Great question, Andy. So what Andy is referring to is the fact that in SharePoint, when you're building the column formatting, there's what's known as the display name for the column, and there's an internal field name. And SharePoint platform does some funny things when it relates to that. If you go into any column, you'll see what those fields are called. But I'll just give you an example real quick. I have this field called field space A space B space ABC, right? Well, the actual internal field name for that turns into field underscore X0020 underscore A, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and in the code behind, it does have to refer to that. To answer your question, Andy, the tool automatically translates that for you, okay? So the user doesn't have to worry about that. If in the SharePoint dashboards tool, if I just put that, it's smart enough to know, oh, you use spaces, and it maps that, and it'll automatically translate and do that. So to answer your question, all you have to put in is the display name. You don't really have to worry about that condition at all. It'll work whether you reference the internal name or the display name, either way.
And kind of a quick little follow-up or extension of that, does the column type impact the dashboard? Are there any limitations related to different column types?
Generally speaking, that's explained in the template note. So that blue box I mentioned is really important because it describes what it's expecting to see. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I have a let's go. I have like an asset tracking template. Let me get to that real quick. It actually defined that for you. So you do want to pay attention to those notes. This is a very particular type of template. It's going to render this card with particular fields in it, and it's very specific. So it instructs the user, okay, if you're going to use this template, it's expecting the title field. You need to have a text field called brand. You need to have a text field called model. So this is specific. And so in the case of all the templates, if you look in the blue card, it provides instructions and tells you specifically which column type or column types that you should be using for that particular template. Generally, it's pretty straightforward. You're typically using text fields or choice fields or date fields or things like that. But to answer your question, you need to look at the instructions in the blue box if you're not sure which type of field you should use.
Excellent. Just going to keep going down the list. I had a couple, and I see.
Yeah, I can't see the chat, so I appreciate you reading through them because I've got all these multiple screens going, and I don't want to stop my screen share. Thanks.
No worries. You were showing it was the flow button, the actionable button, and you talked a little bit about changing the icon. Can you go back to that example, and can you walk through actually adding the icon to the button, so like changing the flow logo and pulling from the Office Fabric UI buttons and putting that in the dashboard? Can you walk through that process?
I sure will. So I'm here on the screen. So I'm just using the flow icon right now. So you've got a couple of options. One is in the instructions in the bottom. I've actually gone ahead and went through there and find some logical ones that to me seem like they would make sense. So those are suggested. They have a particular name to them. So here's one called Lightning Bolt. If I paste it in the icon select and click out of it, that changes the icon. Okay, so that's one thing you can do if you don't want to browse through the 15 gazillion flow icons. If you do want to browse that list, you absolutely can use any of those. So you just click on the Find Icon button. It gives you instructions. What it tells you is when you get to the page, you need to right-click on the icon, copy it, and paste it back over. So it kind of reminds you, okay, this is what you're going to do. So I hit the OK button. All right, so what I would do is I'd scroll through this for 1,000 years, until I found just the right one. I right click and do copy friendly name, right? And then I just come into the icon select and just paste like that. See how I have my shield now?
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, the Office Fabric or Office UI Fabric icons, that's Microsoft supported for those of you that are not familiar with that. So they do work all across Microsoft 365. As we see, they're working here in our list formatting, which is pretty cool. All right, I'll just keep going. So there was one part where you were showing how to change the item in the list. Had the circles with the check boxes and to the left of it, and then you were changing, clicking into edit mode and without switching into the grid view. Can you go back to that and walk back through that one more time?
Yeah, sure, I can. Let me we'll go back to the checkbox example because it's pretty easy to understand. So first of all, let me explain what that edit mode thing is about and how it works and how you can set it up. So Microsoft just released this feature, I think, a couple months ago. It's really new, and it's basically this control. I know this is probably hard to see on my screen, but there's a command that you can provide in the formatting. It's called Inline Edit Field. So once you provide that instruction, it's basically saying allow the user to use inline edit mode. And then the other part to that is they provided some like a special class, if you will, for how that should appear when you hover over it. So it says inline editor border color green. So that's what I have in the template. Now, you don't ever have to deal with that with these templates. There's a checkbox that lets you do it. I'll show you that in a second. But that behind the scenes, that's what turns that on, if you will. Okay, so that's one type of thing. So that makes it where I can hover over this. So that gives the user a clue that they could actually edit it. And that inline editor command makes it where I can actually click into it and change it. Okay, so that's how it happens in code. In the checkbox, let me show you how that works. In the checkbox, they have a special command called action input. In this case, since it's just a checkbox, I basically said it's a shorthand, but it says if at current field. In this case, it's a true or false value. It basically tells it to flip it to the other thing. Like if this is true, make it false. Otherwise, it's true. You know. So that's what's happening behind the scenes. And then also, it lets me choose some styling in there. Okay, so I have some classes in there where I can set like the cover style. So this is the kind of stuff that, you know, will make you pull out your hair and throw furniture and all that kind of thing if you're wrestling with it. But that's really the goal of my tool, is to remove all of that for you. Let me show you how that works on my side of things. Let me go to the template for the checkbox and show you how you work with it. There you are, checkboxes. So on my side, you know, I have an interactive. So basically, if you don't want that, you just take off the interactive mode. See how those aren't changing right now? If I do want it, I just turn that on. And now when I hover over, it gives me the effect. I can control the hover color. I just pick a color swatch. See how those are pink now? And I can also change like the yes and no color. And that also works with the icons. So these are checkboxes, but you can see I came up with like a different style of checkboxes. Like I'll just show you something really fun. You can do light bulbs. So let's do a on light bulb. Paste that in there. Obviously want the on light bulb to be yellow. So the yes color, I want that to be, let's make it like a dark yellow. And then I want the light bulb for off. So that's kind of cool. You can get creative and really just use totally different concepts. All right, there's the off light bulb. Okay, but I don't want that to be yellow. I want that to be like dark gray. But and I don't want it to be like pink when I hover. That looks atrocious. Okay, so I can just change that to I don't know, maybe like light yellow. and it's showing me like I'm clicking on these things. It's going to show me like what's going to happen. Okay, does that answer, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically I was showing you at first what happens in the code behind, but what's going on here is this code changes. See how it changes, like when I'm changing options in here? Like you will never have to touch a single character of this code ever. This tool just writes all of that for you. The one other thing I don't have in here, you do have to put in the name of the field. Okay, so that's a field called build, so I would need to type in build. See how that's in there now? So this is like, if you're just curious, if you want to see what the code's doing, by all means take a look at that. It says, okay, if build, if that is true or false, do that. Okay. So, all right, there you go.
All right, and just there were a couple other side questions about where will the recording be. That's going to be on our YouTube channel. For those of you that are joining us here live, I've posted a link to that in the chat window, so feel free to follow us on YouTube. And additionally, someone asked a question about the new board view that Microsoft announced at Ignite back in November. If the board view was going, or if we had seen that in our attendance yet. It's kind of the Kanban board in Microsoft List where you can drag and drop between different statuses. I haven't seen that go live in my tenant yet. The roadmap said that was GA of 2022, so January 2022, but I haven't seen it live yet. And then the last question that I have is, what do you recommend for saving the formatting as you build it in the dashboard, you get it pixel perfect through all the customization options you provide? What do you recommend for saving that formatting for use in additional lists besides just the column itself? Let's say, for example, I have an end user that doesn't know what they're doing and they go and clear the formatting out. What do you recommend for creating a reference or saving the formatting options that users create with the dashboard tool?
That's a good question. Well, the first thing I recommend to you is, here, I got that zoomed in, change it back. I really recommend that you have your own sandbox site, SharePoint, because that's how you're going to get really good at this. You can see that, I do all my testing in here. I literally have made views and lists to test every single one of the templates that I work with. So I know that I can always change or update that anytime that I want. So if you have that, that really can become your personal repository where you don't have to worry about somebody messing around with your stuff or changing it. As was stated in the question, the view is storing your code, and as long as you know that somebody's not modifying it, then that's going to help you. Another approach, which I wouldn't necessarily do, obviously you can copy and paste. How did I get out of? You can copy and paste that stuff just into a simple text file if you want to, but I really recommend your own sandbox site. That would be your best bet. Or you could even make like a private view, which is only for you. That would be a way to make sure somebody doesn't mess with it. But that'd be the best way to go. So you're going to want to store your own configured view in your own list, in your own view. You want to store that inside of your own SharePoint environment.
And for those of you that are a little bit more in the developer space, I put a link in the chat window. There's a tool, Visual Studio Code for the web. It's a lightweight version of Visual Studio Code. It opens directly in your web browser, and that's a great place to work with some of the actual code itself. You can create an account and you can save it there, and you can keep your formatting intact. So it's a great little reference for you. All right. Well, Will, this has been really, really eye-opening. I know a few people like myself have been geeking out as we've been watching it. The amount of customization that you've provided and how user-friendly all of this is really cool. And that's why we wanted to showcase this tool to the community. With all the free templates that you provided, there's a lot of value for people to get started very quickly. And with all the pro templates, you can really take some of this stuff to the next level. But I think the best part is you don't have to write a single line of JSON in order to do it. With the user interface and the copy and paste options, I mean, there's some really cool things that you can do here with not a whole lot of effort. And that's the reason we wanted to get you on this month and showcase this, because I think this is going to be a huge contribution to the community at large. So thank you very much. Really appreciate the in-depth demo and all the hard work that you've put in to putting this together and sharing it with the community. With that, we're going to stick around for just a couple more minutes. If there are any other additional questions that are out there, please feel free to send those our way. But folks, thank you so much for being here for our January 2022 meetup. We will get this posted on our YouTube channel as soon as the video finishes rendering, and we'll make that available, a link through Meetup as well. But thank you so much. We will have an announcement around our February event here very shortly. We'll get that one posted. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.
Awesome, thanks.